one thing I want to ask you, Jonathan, is how do they arrive at this number? I'm going through some of the casework here, and Eric Sean's going to read some of it to us that's relevant for people to help understand. But I'm not sure how you arrive at these damages when you don't have anyone who's claiming that they were financially damaged.
Yeah, the court seems to have compounded the highest figures in most areas of how much could have been claimed and might have impacted loans or taxes, and then imposed those costs. The New York law is an odd one. Because it does not require that anyone actually lose money. And so James was able to come in here with this figure, and she kept on going up. And of course, that pleased a lot of people in New York. And the question, I think, is whether at some point this shocks the conscience. You know, you have Bragg, who is prosecuting the president in a case that many of us view as just a raw political exercise. You have James, who promised to bag this president for some undefined reason when she ran for office. And now you have this confiscatory, extreme and abusive penalty. At some point, New Yorkers have to wonder, is this really what we want from a legal system? It is raw and it's political. I am not saying that there was not a basis to impose a fine, but when you're imposing fines larger than the budget of some countries, you really have to wonder whether you've allowed your impulse to run away with your judgment.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Ari, your thoughts on the fact that the family has been gone after here as well. And it's interesting from the political perspective, we haven't seen the level of involvement from the Trump family so far in the campaign that we saw the last time around. And the former president has said that, you know, all of this was at times too much. He didn't want to inflict, you know, any more pain on any members of his family. I'm not quoting him directly, but something to that effect. Your thoughts on the fact that this extends, I mean, they're involved in the business, these individuals, to the family as well, Ari, politically?
Yeah, here's the problem when you live in an overwhelmingly blue state. And just to put a point on it, New York County, which is where Manhattan is, Manhattan votes 85-15 Democrat to Republican in presidential races. That was the margin that Biden beat Trump on. It was also the margin that George Bush lost by, Mitt Romney lost by, and John McCain lost by. Overwhelming Democrats. So you're surrounded by Democrats on the island of Manhattan. And this is what's led to them taking the Trump name down off of buildings throughout Manhattan. Mm-hmm. Buildings that used to have Trump's name, not only in Manhattan, Stamford, Connecticut, and Westchester, New York, White Plains, and throughout the city. So the extension of all these people who want to take Trump's name off the building is drive them out of business. And then when that gets into the hands of authorities, to legal authorities, prosecutors, DAs, this is what's pernicious. This is now where politics has leaped onto the power of white-collar officials who sit at desks to drum up opposition to knock somebody out of political business by going after their corporate business. And that's how they think in blue states. And because it's so overwhelmingly Democrat, there's very little pressure pushing back on these politicians here to stop doing it because it's wrong. So unless the appeals process in New York comes to the rescue, New York has become a legal banana republic. They are so determined to get Donald Trump. They don't only want to take his name off the buildings, they want to knock his family out of the business.
We're looking at some video here from Las Vegas and the various rallies. Shannon, politically, the former president has gone all cylinders, showing up even when he didn't have to at these court dates. He was in this particular courtroom with Arthur Engoron very frequently as Letitia James would, you know, come down the aisle there and sit in her seat. So they were, you know, within probably 15 feet of each other at that point. I mean, you know, the impact in your mind, as you cover politics and the nexus of the courts on the campaign, if there is one.
Yeah, think about the fact that it was just a matter of a couple of weeks ago that there was a verdict, a civil verdict against him for more than $80 million.
That's right.
It was a huge flash in the headlines for maybe 3 or 4 days. He was back on the campaign trail with tens of thousands of people showing up. And we've almost kind of forgotten about the E. Jean Carroll verdict. Now you've got this one. It will certainly make headlines and it will get a lot of attention, but it'll do what he did after the E. Jean Carroll, which is go out on the campaign trail and say, look at this corrupt, prosecution coming after me. These people are trying to destroy me because I'm standing between you and them. I'm the barrier. They want to take me out of the way. So I would imagine with the rallies and the things that we're going to hear from him in the wake of this, nearly $400 million verdict against him and his family, he's going to use it to say the same thing. And I think that most people from the outside looking in, his supporters are definitely going to feel like this is just another verdict that they're not going to see as, legitimate in any way, and it will only lend to his argument. So again, we've got, all of the planes coming in, lining up for runway landings with these trials coming, as we stand by also to see if the Supreme Court gets involved in that immunity case, which really is a big decider about whether or not Jack Smith's January 6th case against the president starts or stops or when it happens at all. So, this could be another big legal day for him on other fronts if we get that news too. Yeah,
it's an extraordinary lineup, as you say, and it is like planes lined up on the tarmac kind of waiting to take off. Jonathan Turley, explain for everybody at home what comes next in this case. We expect to hear from Alina Habba. I know we're going to see her on tonight with Hannity as well. She was the attorney on this case, and you can see her, if you can see her, she's on the right-hand side of that picture that we're showing right now with President Trump. But what happens now with this appeals case? If this case has been very political, does it get any better at that level in New York?
I'm not sure whether it does. The fact is that appeals started in the earlier stage when the court found that Trump had committed fraud. And there are pending matters with regard to that appellate line. There will now be a new appellate line on the basis of this figure. The question is whether the appellate judges are going to show more circumspection and restraint than this judge. I hope that they will. I don't mean to say that everyone in the New York legal system has been corrupted by political animus. There are many, many good judges and many, many good lawyers. And this is a time when I think they have to come forward and throw a flag on the play. It's not that the court was necessarily wrong, that there was undervaluation or overvaluation, but the size of this fine and the level of sanctions here is breathtaking. And it does raise serious questions, even aside from the evidentiary basis used by the court. It goes to at what point does a fine become so excessive that it violates the constitutional rights of an individual?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.